I'm Amy.
I'm Wendell.
And I'm Patrick.
And
This is
Yes
But Why
Podcast. Wanted to tell you this, but I wanted to hit record before I did so that, we could start talking about improv.
Yeah.
I started reading this book. It is called If I Understood You, Would I Have This Look on My Face by Alan Alda. And Alan Alda was in, the first improv group, the group called The Committee in California. And the people who were in that troupe with him went on to move to Chicago and start Second City.
Oh, wow.
And so this was the beginnings before we get to Second City and all the other stuff. Mm-hmm. Before Del Close is involved in it, these are the people that are working on it. So it's really interesting to hear him. So he writes this book about how he is using improv exercises to teach scientists how to communicate, because they're brain is such that they're great at figuring out the science, mm-hmm. but they're not so great at telling a person who needs to give them funding why they need to give them funding, mm-hmm. or any level of this is why what I do is cool. They're just it's necessary. And you're okay, but sell it a little. So he goes through how he developed so he teaches a program at Stony Brook University, and he goes through the whole thing explaining how he got the idea, how it started, what the findings, and throughout the whole thing he's this is anecdotal, this is just what I found. But it's really interesting to listen to somebody talk about improv in a way that's so this is how you can really help the world.
Oh, I personally totally relate to this because I'm naturally left-brained, so I'm flipping through this book wondering where I'm going to get it or if I'm going to borrow this when you're done.
Yeah.
Because that's something I've had to learn, and that's why I've loved improv, is because I'm naturally a science-brained, assuming everybody understands everything that's going on in my head.
Interesting.
Yeah. But this looks awesome.
Oh, that's fun. So, given that that's how you diagnose yourself, do you find that when you started doing improv that you had trouble with the part of sort of group mind of connecting with the person? Because you assume that they know what's in your brain, and they probably don't, because we all are thinking our own thoughts. Mm-hmm. Did you hit a lot of walls when it came to communication in that way?
I played team sports growing up, so I was used to doing what it took for the benefit of a group, but I think what I found difficult was that improv is full of different kinds of artists with different kinds of ideas, and our ideas weren't all on the same page all the time. And I found that challenging. The idea of having to kind of listen to what other people were saying, as terrible as it sounds, was hard for me, because sometimes in my head, I had a good idea, and I wanted to get it out, and I wanted to play with it.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, for me, that was the hardest part of level 1. And honestly, just being comfortable opening up. I think even in industry, improv is amazing for anyone, anywhere, because being able to open up and be vulnerable in any capacity anywhere is very difficult. And I found that hard in level 1. Because you don't want to look like an asshole in front of all these strangers.
Yeah, absolutely.
Anything that comes out your mouth, there's a very good chance you're going to fail at what you're saying.
Yeah.
But I found by level 3 and 4, it was pretty predictable that everyone was going to support what you were going to say, and that's for me when it started getting a little bit easier.
Yeah. I find that when I teach level 1, I have to put the syrup on a bit more than other times. It's mm-hmm. Come on, we're going to be the sweetest to each other. Mm-hmm. We're the bestest of friends. They've just met, this is their second class, and I'm all we're going to be so close.
Yeah, but you have that infectious energy. If you were my level 1 teacher, I feel all my walls would come down immediately. But I'm curious, what do you find the most commonly difficult thing to get people to open up with in improv in level 1? What is a challenge that comes up for you?
I personally think that I open the floodgates of ideas in their head, and mm-hmm. then it just goes too wild, which is good, because that's a good problem to have. Mm-hmm. But something that'll happen, I rarely have students that don't talk. I will tell them they should talk so much that they're adding 47,000 details to a scene, and I have to go, okay, cool. one of those was cool. Didn't have to have, you didn't have to be a doctor that did hearts and brains and also hair and also science and also you're going to Mars. There's a lot of stuff. Like, just worry about juggling one thing at a time. So I feel like really, I get a lot of people who are overly contributing, and I have to help them hone what both the funniest ideas are, and then not only like how to see that because it's such a subjective thing, but also like how to just keep it simple, because I think we do that all to ourselves, like in life. We bite off more than we can chew a ton. We'll say yes to too many things, especially people who are likely to take an improv class. Like one thing that I generally do at the beginning of my improv class is to say, I want everyone to stop worrying that they're not cool. No one takes an improv class that isn't a little funny already. Like you took this class because your cube mate told you were funny. Your brother told you were funny. Your the waiter at the restaurant told you were funny. Somebody told you were funny and you thought, what can I do with that? And then you found an improv class. Like that's how everyone gets through the door. So we're all together. We're funny people. It's cool. We don't have to worry about that part. Let's now dig into this like brain thing that we're going to do, which is exercise ideas and then just try to talk them out with each other. Right. And so I think that eases people because it's like, no, we're all the same. Like we're not at a meeting of something where we don't have, this is the one thing we all have in common. Like somebody in our life has said, you're the funniest.
That's funny. I was trying to think, how did I get into improv? And somebody randomly at a Jewish community fundraiser said, you're funny, you should take this class. And I took it. That is how I ended up at the New Movement.
Yeah. I mean, that's how everybody takes the class. You don't look up how to take comedy classes unless, A, you are already dedicated to be a comedian without anyone telling you, or somebody mentioned it to you. I mean, why would a person take a comedy class? Like, I've had people who've said, my boss told me I should, but that's just another version of somebody told me I was funny.
What if it's on Groupon too? That's a double reason to just take it. That was the what happened to me. I was told I was funny. I said, all right, let me find where I can do these classes, and I saw there's a Groupon for it, and that sealed the deal.
Yeah. No, it did for a long time with a lot of people, actually. I feel like a huge portion of people made it in through the Groupon for sure. But I mean, even with a Groupon, I would get people... Here's the thing about Groupon. This is interesting. At least from my point of view. When I ran the school, we don't get a list of all the people. Like, Groupon doesn't send you a list of people that bought your thing. Or if they do, I didn't get it. Whoever got it didn't send it to me. And so I never knew who bought the Groupon. I only knew the people who, after receiving the Groupon, then got in contact with us. Because they get the thing, and it says, contact this thing to enroll in a class. And then you do, and that's it. But you have to take that second step. Many, many, many people just take the first step.
Oh, I couldn't figure out to save my life. Half the time I buy Groupons, and I don't end up using them, because I have no idea how to get registered to the thing. Or I showed up to a Broadway show once, and apparently you had to register for a thing, and I was all dressed up, and ready to see a Broadway show, and I hadn't emailed whatever the email was.
Yeah. I mean, well, they don't make it easy, but they also, like, to a certain extent, I feel like it's almost like hoops you have to jump through. It's like, how badly do you want this deal?
And it weans out, what do they call it? Like, it trims the fat.
Yeah.
We got rid of all the dumbasses through the intricate process of getting through the Groupon process.
Yeah, well, and when you think about a comedy class, I think it weeds out the fearful. If they were brave in that 1 second when they hit buy, and then when it got to them, they were like, no, thank you. The nice thing that I always say is thank you for donating. Like, you just donated money to this theater, and we really appreciate it.
I'm a firm believer in natural selection. So that is absolutely natural selection and action.
Not to mention the fact that truly I've taught hundreds of level 1s, and the class will not be the final class until maybe class 3 or 4. There's always a huge amount, except for with your class.
Yeah, nobody dropped out. We
left.
gained people.
Yeah.
We got 2 as we went.
Yeah, absolutely.
God,
No.
that was, 14 people or something like that?
Absolutely. Yeah, you had like 14. There were 2 14-person classes going at the same time, right at the same moment. It was wild for that many people.
Well, we weren't just 14. We were like 12 loud people and then 2 normal people who like had loud tendencies. I remember our level, I think it was a level 4 or level 5 show, it basically was a screaming match. And I remember after I was asking my husband what he thought about our scenes, and he was like, I don't really know what happened, but you guys were laughing, so I laughed.
Yeah. You know, sometimes I think about that with reference to performance of improv, that it's like, it's actually more fun for the performer than the audience.
Oh, 100%.
Because you are in on this magical journey of, I don't know what's going to happen, and you're just trying to keep your head above water enough to continue to speak until the lights go down. Like, it's a wild ride, you know, that rivals, you know, any roller coaster to be on stage doing improv, because it's so like, I don't know, I'm just going to keep trying and wing it.
Well, that was something that was hard for me. Was I'm an ENTP or an ENTJ brain type. I'm very left-brained, and so I naturally want to please the audience. So the whole time I'm on this fun roller coaster, having a blast, but I always look out at the audience, and if they don't look happy, every ounce of fun is immediately sucked from my body. So it's been this weird balance I've had to figure out.
Yeah.
Because all the time you have those shows where, you know, you sang that crazy number, or you had that scene that went to space and you thought it was grounded, and you're laughing and you look out and just a bunch of blank faces. In fact, a couple weeks ago, I was actually in a show where I looked out and I felt okay about things. I try not to look at the audience too much in shows. And this one guy was asleep in the front row. And that was a show that I thought was going pretty good. And then I tried to tell myself, like, well, maybe it's just him. And so then I looked to the right side, and there's 2 people on their cell phones. But those happen. I mean, that's an important part of improv, is you figuring out, like, what can I do to keep these people engaged? When we're having a bad day, what can we do to at least hit the minimum that an audience wants to see, and feel like, you know, what they've paid for their ticket is at least being delivered.
Yeah. Sometimes I worry that the formats are there for the marketing of it. Like things like an Armando show where there's a story, then the audience is connected to that story, and potentially the storyteller, and then they watch the improv based on it, so they can see some of, like, they see how the clock works, you know. They're like, I see how those 2 things came together, and because they feel like they're in on it, they're smart. Like a lot of my sketch writing, whenever I will teach people sketch writing, it's a lot of like, make the audience feel like they're real smart, even if at the end you pull out the rug. It's like you have to get them on your side, and then they're like, oh, I'm interested, what is happening? Like, and they're either offended, angry, or they're surprised in a pleasant way, but there's always some sort of rug being pulled out. But with improv, you can't, like, organize that exactly as well. So I feel like certain shows, like one of the shows that recently came out that I thought really did well to market it and get people interested in improv was Penalty Box.
Oh, I
thought that show was just such a smart way to get the audience super involved in what's going on in the scenes. The idea that they know something that the performers don't is this little gem of like magic that is such a smart thing to have, because then the whole audience thinks they are the funniest people in the whole wide world, because they have it over on this guy over here, and he doesn't know what he's doing, and he's frustrated, you know, and it's like, yes.
Well, that's why I think, in my opinion, suggestion taking is important, because even if it's just one word that the audience is contributing to a show, it's what makes them feel like they're a part of it, and it makes them feel like there's a rule they've put that they at least understand. Because, like, as improvisers, we can do a formatless show, but there's still rules we know. We know to say yes. We know how to support. We know how to add. We know how many variables or too many variables that we're throwing in. But sometimes the audience has no clue what's going on. And so I love formats that give them an idea of what's going to happen, because then at least they can follow along a little bit better.
Yeah.
And again, this is a left-brained person speaking, so there's probably half the world is right-brained, and I'm sure they're all fine with no-rules improv shows, but I personally need to know kind of what to expect to be able to enjoy it.
I actually feel like a lot of people are like that, really. I mean, if I've received any information from audiences, it's often that they, feel sort of left out. Like that something